All right, Savannah, you're on.
Okay.
Welcome.
Ooh, I hope I do a good job. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Savannah and I'm from the Center for Families of Savannah, Indiana, and I am the Sexual Assault Services Coordinator there. So just to start off, just a couple of ground rules, so please participate. This is a presentation, but we are going to have little activities where I might ask you all some questions, so please participate and that makes this a little more fun and interactive. And this will have some stuff about some traumatic things, so please take care of yourselves if you want to step out or take a break or anything like that, especially because we will be talking about kiddos too, so you know, if you all need to take a break or anything, feel free to. So to start off, this is the center's mission statement. So the Center for Women and Families helps victims of intimate partner abuse or sexual violence to become survivors through supportive services, community education, and cooperative partnerships that foster hope, promote self-sufficiency, and rebuild lives. So that is our mission of the center. So I told you all this was going to be interactive. So we're going to start off with a little pop quiz. So you'll might notice that there are some blanks up here. So I'm going to have you all help me fill in this definition. So I will read off part of the sentence. We'll stop at the blank and I'll have you all guess and we'll see what you all think. So you ready? Okay. Intimate partner violence is a blank of behaviors. What do you all think?
That's what I guess.
What did you say? Myriad. Myriad, oh, very close. I'd say it's a synonym kind of for myriad. Pattern? Yes. Yes, pattern, awesome, good job. Is a pattern of behaviors used by one person to gain and maintain blank and blank.
Power, control.
Yes, yeah, good job. Good job. Yeah, you all know your stuff. So to gain and maintain power and control over another person in an intimate relationship. Good job. You all got an A+ on your topics. So this is the full definition that you all got. Okay, so we're gonna start watching this. You all hear that?
It's cliche, but here it was pretty shocking. It was very kind, sweet, nice. I left what I was doing to come be with him, and I was alone with him. I didn't have any friends or family in the area. I couldn't find a job, so he paid bills. We got to an argument, and that's the first time that he hit me. He actually threw me up against the wall and started to choke me. And I didn't really understand what was happening because he was not that person all this time. And so when he finally let me go, I thought it was something I did. You know, I wasn't thinking to run. After we got married, it didn't stop. It just got worse and worse and worse. And I felt like I was trapped at that point from where we were across the country again. And I was further isolated. I didn't have to return to family. He still was the breadwinner. I was dependent on him. So I left. What was I going to do? How was I going to take care of myself? I felt like no one would understand, and I felt like no one would care.
The first full-out physical attack was fine. Part of me knew I had to leave him right then. But I couldn't marry somebody who had done this. But then this other part of me said, but wait, it's one time. And I told myself I'd never do it again. I was sure he was very sorry. And, I didn't. I married him. He saved me. Yeah, I had no choice. You told me, and I also, that's the part that it felt so easy to me. It's like, the standard question, why do you leave? Why do you leave? Well, he was trained by the United States Marine Corps to kill me. He told me if I left, he would come in and kill me. That's why I didn't leave. They used to pull what he would call a disappear acts. And that would be, because it just was getting too intense. But I would always go back because at least I knew where he was. At least I knew the routine. I knew what to expect. But you know, it's a terrible way to live to always be looking over your shoulder. Kids start out with being incredibly sweet, incredibly attentive, incredibly thoughtful, incredibly kind, saying things to me that no one ever said, and paying attention to me in ways that no one ever had. You know, and I was really taken by it. One of the reasons why we stay is because the behavior is such a drastic change from the person we met in the beginning. And we're constantly looking for the man in the beginning instead of concentrating on the man that's in front of us. Once I understood that, then I made the decision. This is not the same. I love him, but he's going to kill me.
With every violent moment, I felt further connected to him in this kind of twisted way. I felt that, you know, we had this secret that bound us together, and that this was something big, and we were working on it, so we had to stay together, so we worked it out. The violence got to a point where I realized that I could not. I had to create a plan. I had to figure out where I was going to go and how I was going to get there, who I was going to reach out to for help if there was any. I was scared. I was afraid they would find me. I was afraid that he would be so angry that I left, that he would come after me. I could just get up and walk away.
It was the most terrible feeling to know that I couldn't, I still couldn't, because I was bound by this psychological trap that I thought was love. It wasn't love. You know, I had so much denial. If you had come to me and said, are you being physically abused? You know, if my doctor had asked me where, my best friend, I would have said, no, I'm not being physically abused.
Feel isolated and you keep a lot of secrets. You know, you keep a lot of secrets in your heart and your home in your head. I stayed because I believed in what he said he was going to do. I stayed because I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have any money. I didn't have access to any resources. I stayed because my religious community committed to me that I couldn't get divorced because God would hate me. I stayed because I loved him. You know, I stayed because he was the love of my life, and I wanted to believe that love could conquer all, including abuse.
Okay. So what did you all think of the video? What were some common reasons you heard in there why people stayed in these relationships?
They fell in love with the first person and thought, oh, he'll go back to being who he was. They go there now.
Yes, definitely. That honeymoon period, right?
They felt isolated. Yeah. Tell them about who he was.
Financial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, financial is a big reason.
Children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, children. All right. What do you all think this means for children? The parent wants to say.
Teach them that they think that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, to that point, I think that it is okay. That's their model of what a relationship looks like.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So we'll go more into that, but I just wanted to hear your all's initial thoughts. Okay, so we're gonna do a little activity. I'm going to have you all break into 2 groups. Middle, and we'll have one group go over here. So you all will have 2 minutes. You all will put either risks of staying or risks of leaving, just whatever you risk for somebody in that relationship. And then after those 2 minutes, you all will swap and you will do it for the other one and then we'll talk, okay? All right, and I have some markers here for you all. Sorry. Everyone have enough markers? All good? Okay, awesome. Yeah.
One, I always say that. Access to resources or friends.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
It's wet. Yes. I need to like, we want to break it. Yeah.
Okay, about 20 more seconds and I'll have full swap. Okay, stop and swap to the other side. Good job, it's like all your things.
They don't have the financial resources, and they want DCS, and then because the money will be in the car, their kids trying to. That's a problem. Yeah.
That's going back. Children.
Yes.
About 20 seconds left. Okay. Stop. You can add. Go on, another one you want to add? Yes. That's very true. You will bring those up front to me, and can I get a volunteer from each group to hold it and read it out loud? So don't have to talk. Or somebody else. I can help you too. Okay. So we'll start with here with Chris abstain.
Yeah, okay, I can read it. Sure. So risk of staying, things getting worse, death, toxic stress, losing identity, further isolation, stress on children, DCS involvement, cycle of lies, mental turmoil, safety of children, physical health, and the child views on relationships.
Awesome, good job. You all have a here for
Financial, lack of support, judgment, fear, don't want blame, stress on children, not being able to protect the children, feeling of failure, DCS involvement, going back to the relationship, mental health risk, that he defines you or she, death, taking the children, ruining the name of the person.
So when you all are looking at these two lists, the risks of staying versus the risks of leaving, what do you all notice?
A lot of overlap.
Yeah, a lot of overlap, right? Are there any that stand out to you that are similar?
The death.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Mental health risk. Yeah,
Yes, and mental health.
children.
Children.
Hurting either way.
Yes, exactly. So we do this activity to show, as you'll, I'm sure you all will be thinking about it, but it's not quite so simple to just leave, right? There's still a lot of risks associated with leaving. And that's part of what the center is around to do, is to help mitigate those risks and help people leave safely, but it's not really easy, right? And as you all have mentioned, death is a risk either. So it's a difficult decision, difficult choice, and it makes it complicated for a survivor when they're trying to get out. So good job. So you all have these handouts with you, so feel free to look at that one. So yeah, I thought that would be easier for you all to see. Who all has seen this deal before? Okay, yeah, so this is the power and control wheel. This was actually developed by researchers asking survivors about their experiences, and they put them all together into this wheel. So on the wheel, as you can see, there are different ways that an abuser can get and maintain that power and control. So that includes emotional abuse, physical abuse, using privilege, financial abuse, sexual abuse, using children, using intimidation, and using isolation. So what do you all notice about all of those?
It's like seems to be centered around like dominating another person.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's about getting that power over another person. And most of these aren't even types of physical abuse. Yes, there's physical abuse and sexual abuse listed on there, but most of the other things listed on the wheel are not physical. And that's a really common misconception that people have is if the person isn't hitting them, they think that it's not abusive. But as you often see, there are so many other ways for somebody to get that power and control over another. So that doesn't mean that it's not abusive. So we show that to show people all those different ways. Is there anything that surprises you all on this wheel? When you look at it? Oh, sorry, is there anything that surprises you when you look at the wheel? Anything maybe you haven't considered before?
I've just never until that video, that way, or the using privilege, and then the children to relay messages like about stress of the children, but not necessarily that they.
Definitely, especially with things like custody, that can become a big way for the abuser to assert that power and control even after the survivor has left them. Then it becomes custody battle time. So it's just another way to abuse, unfortunately. So this is the equality and nonviolence wheel. So in this talks about healthy aspects of a relationship. So non-threatening behavior, respect, trust and support, honesty and accountability, responsible parenting, shared responsibility, economic partnership, and negotiation and fairness. So these are all parts that can help build an equal relationship. As you all have seen, abusive relationships really are about power and control over another individual. Another misconception, another thing that we hear sometimes is like, are both people abusing each other at the same time? So we just call that toxic, basically. Like both people can have abusive behaviors, but the definition of abuse is that one person has that power and control over another. Now, sometimes they could swap places. So maybe somebody, starts off being more of the abusive one and they stop and then the other one starts and they have that power and control. But if it's both people at the same time, that's just toxicity. So we always talk about that too, just to throw that in there. So now we'll move on and talk about the effects of intimate partner violence on children. So if a child is in the home where intimate partner violence is occurring, they are more likely to be abused, sadly. Even just witnessing the abuse can have a lot of long-term effects on the kiddos, and I'll go more into those in a second. But what do you all think some of those effects of witnessing violence have? I know you all mentioned a couple earlier about them thinking it's okay. Is there anything else that you all think other effects have? Yeah, definitely. Building that resentment, yeah.
I think that's how we made it.
I would say mental illness, not like PTSD.
Yeah, definitely. Mental illness.
It can also affect brain development and lead to lifelong mental health issues and socioeconomic issues.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So the things that they are witnessing and experiencing in their childhood. It doesn't just end whenever they grow up and they're out of that household, right? It does have lasting effects. So that's a really good point. Anything else? So some of the things it can cause an inability to concentrate in school for the kiddos. This can cause problems with their schoolwork. Sometimes they might be misdiagnosed too with a learning disability, but really it's just trauma. Now maybe they do have like, ADHD or something like that, but sometimes too it's just the trauma affecting their ability to concentrate. Maybe they're starting to get depressed or anything like that. Another is when a kiddo is experiencing that violence at home, they are concentrated on just having their basic needs met, right? And if there is violence in the home, maybe all of their basic needs are not being met. Safety is definitely not being met, but they're not feeling safe. But maybe they aren't getting the safe shelter and sleep that they need. Maybe they have to move around a lot from like a shelter to another shelter with their parent. Or maybe they don't have access to a lot of food because that's a way the abuser controls the non-abusive parent. So there are different ways it can affect them. And when you don't have your basic needs met, you really can't go above that and focus on school like any kiddo should be able to. Sometimes kiddos will also have to frequently switch schools. That's either because the parent is fleeing and maybe they again are moving around from shelter to shelter, or maybe the abuser is moving them a lot. You all heard in the video about the woman that just got married and then he moved them across the country. So the abuser, if they're still together, maybe they are moving around in that way too. Children also will be labeled for expressing their trauma symptoms. So they might be acting out in class, maybe they're falling asleep in class. So they might be labeled as troubled or labeled as hyperactive, and really these are all just symptoms of trauma because of what they're witnessing at home. And finally, you all mentioned this right off the bat, but it does normalize violence in their relationships. So sadly, it does increase the likelihood that the cycle of violence will just continue. When we normalize it, they might be more likely to experience it once they are adults in their own relationships. So effects of intimate partner violence and abuse by the age of exposure. So if the kiddo is, I know it's probably hard for you all to see, so I'll read off some of it to you all. If the kiddo is ages 0, if they're an infant to 4 years old, if they would probably be exposed to it by seeing it or hearing it, they also might just be awakened by it. They also could be held in the non-abusive parent's arms and they could be ripped out of their arms, or the non-abusive parent might just be holding them and then the abuser hits the other parent. Their toys could be broken. They could have premature birth, and they could be thrown or shaken during an argument. So some possible effects of this for that young age group is acting out violently. They could have social withdrawal. They could have difficulty with getting potty trained and stuff like that, because this is that age when they normally would be doing that. So they could have delayed normal toileting. They also could just have a hard time getting along with other children at school. And they'll start to display symptoms of anxiety and hypervigilance, maybe depression, sleep problems, maybe they're having problems eating. So it can cause a lot of problems, even if they're so young that people think, well, they probably don't understand what's going on. It still can cause issues, even if they aren't at the age where they fully understand it yet. From ages 5 to 12, some of these will be similar, so they can obviously still see it or hear it. But at this point, they might start maybe picking a side and picking a parent to defend. And that doesn't always mean that it is the one that is not abusive. Sometimes they will side with the abusive parent, and that because of their being manipulated. They might start physically intervening because they want to save the other parent, so they might jump in the middle of a fight. They might be at the age where they can call the police, so they'll call the police if their parents get into an argument. They also can be used as a spy. This is something that I've seen a lot when working with kiddos is like whenever they're on visitation with the other parent, then the kiddo will go and like tell things to the abusive parent, and the abusive parent will like egg it on and will ask them all these questions. So just like using that child as a spy, and using them for information basically. And they could be abused at this age too. They could be forced to participate in the abuse of the other parent, or maybe they aren't even being forced, but maybe the kiddo and the parent will both be taunting the other parent and making fun of them. And they could have restricted contact with one parent. And again, it could be with either parent. So possible effects of being exposed in that way. Again, the symptoms of depression and anxiety, those mental illness symptoms will happen, but also at this age, they might start experimenting with alcohol and drugs because they're in middle school at this point. They might start early sexual activity. They also might start like wetting the bed or things like that, stuff that they have previously outgrown, so now they're kind of progressing to like more of a childlike way. They also could be becoming a caretaker at this point, either for their younger siblings or for the parents or for both. They also could be really anxious about pleasing others and being very people pleaser. And again, having those school problems. They also can start running away at this age too, which is a really big risk for kiddos. And for ages 13 and up, at this point, some means of exposure, they could be trying to hurt or kill the perpetrator to again protect the other parent. They could be just trying to stop abuse however they can. They could start hitting a parent or a sibling, maybe start some abuse themselves. They could be physically abused and again used as a spy. They also could be used as a confidant, so like a therapist for either parent or maybe even both parents, just because the parents need someone to talk to, and so that burden is placed on their kiddo. And they also could be, again, coerced by the perpetrator to participate in abuse, or they could just be participating. Some possible effects of being exposed in this way: delinquency and school problems. They all could end up dropping out at this point too. Sexual activity and truancy. One that is really interesting that people don't think about a lot, so I just mentioned truancy and dropping out and all that kind of stuff, but we have overachievement on here as well. So that's on the opposite end of things, but that's another trauma response that kiddos could have because they don't want to be at home. So they'll be overachieving, maybe they're doing really well in school, they're really involved in a lot of activities because they want to get away from home and do whatever they can. And they want to act like everything's normal. So that's another thing to watch out for, just because the kiddo seems like they're doing well in school, that doesn't mean that everything is okay at home, unfortunately. Again, anxiety and depression, alcohol and drug use, and suicide becomes a risk too, especially as they get older. And again, they could be a people pleaser, anxious about pleasing everyone else at this point too. So do you all have any thoughts before I move on about this? Yes.
I know that it said that sometimes they use one of them as a confidant. But another thing they do is they abuser will create allies, not just with the children.
Yes.
It's the other, the kid, they get that to the kid and the kid. I've seen that.
Yeah, yes, that's a great point. So not only trying to create an ally out of the kiddo, but really just the community. And so that ties into that isolation, right? Like turning everyone else against them to isolate them.
And my husband experienced this with his parents, that creating allies, but also getting the kids involved and yelling at him, and it's just crazy.
Yes.
Little kids even.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've seen that too with one of the families I worked with. I've heard from the advocate of the client that the kiddos were now like bullying and abusing the mother, the same as what the parents do, because they were seeing it and the parents were still together and they thought it was okay. So it's really sad. Really sad stuff. Any other thoughts? Okay, so how can you all support children that are going through this? A big thing is just letting them know that this is not their fault. They probably do blame themselves for what is happening, or maybe they think if they act a certain way, they can make it stop. If they act really good, like maybe their parents will stop fighting. Or, you know, maybe they want their parents to get back together because they miss when they were together, and so they don't understand why they're apart now. Another is just validating however they're feeling. So you can do this by repeating back what the kiddo is saying to you, really lets them know that you're listening to them. You also can express concern without having a really big reaction to them, because like I'm sure you all know, but how you react to a kiddo, sometimes that'll make them also react. So if they like trip and fall, if you're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Then that kiddo will be freaked out. But if you are more calm about it, so let them know your concerns, you know, they'll be more calm about it too. So that's definitely a good way to just talk with them about this stuff in general too. It also helps you stay neutral, so it doesn't seem like you are taking either side. You also want to normalize their feelings. They probably will have issues with feeling divided with their loyalty because they love both of their parents, and it's really hard for a kiddo to kind of understand what's going on. So they might feel conflicted, and they might feel guilty. So for this reason, we try to never refer to the abusive parent as bad or refer to them as you know, perpetrator or anything like that to the kiddo. Again, we want to remain neutral with them because, you know, that's still their parent and they love them. That can just kind of aid the kiddo more. Another way to support them is to use specific and positive praise with them. So compliment them on, you know, how nicely they're playing with their blocks and how quietly and they're stacking them very well, being very specific, but focusing on the skills that they have and not just like compliments that are about appearance or anything like that, but really trying to build them up and build up their self-esteem based on like all of their strengths and good qualities, not just, you know, they like, yeah. Another is breaking down problems and challenges into smaller parts. So this makes things feel less overwhelming for that kiddo, so they don't feel like they have this whole mountain that they have to climb, but they have smaller individualized things that they can do. And a big one is just being consistent and following through and not making any promises you can't keep. Unfortunately, the kiddo has probably experienced a lot of broken promises before, so we don't want to do anything that could add to that. We want to keep that trust with the kiddo and let them know that they're safe here, and that you were a consistent person for them. So sometimes the abuse can extend past just the partner to the kiddos. This could be in a lot of different ways other than just physical abuse. So they could be using institutions, so maybe they are threatening the kiddo with going to a foster home or anything like that. They could be isolating, so maybe they're isolating the kiddo from the other parent or isolating the kiddo from their grandparents or neighbors or anything like that. Emotional abuse too, so maybe they're doing the same kind of emotional abuse to the partner and to the kiddo. Economic abuse, if they're like withholding any type of basic needs for the kiddo, if they are using all the family money on, you know, they're just squandering it on something, and if they are withholding child support from the other parent, and if they are using the kiddos as like a bargaining chip in divorce proceedings, that's also economic abuse. If they're making any type of threats, if they're threatening to abandon them, or threatening to, you know, hurt them or anything like that, any type of threatening behavior. And using adult privilege, so maybe they treat their kiddos like servants, or they are punishing them a lot because they're adults, so they they can do that. So using that privilege against them and intimidating them too is another big one. So maybe just scaring them with how they look at them. A lot of these will probably be similar to how that adult is abusing the other adult. They start to extend it to the kiddo. So now I'm just going to do a quick little overview of sexual violence, just to go over some of the services that we have for this as well. So we are a domestic violence and rape crisis center. And the definition of sexual violence is sexual contact that occurs from one person directed at another without their consent. And I just want to highlight that our definition of consent is consent must be clear, coherent, freely given, and ongoing. This might be different from definitions of consent you all have heard in the past. I know when I first heard this, it was different than what I had heard. The big one I had heard was that no means no, which, you know, definitely no still means no, that hasn't changed. But just because somebody didn't say no doesn't mean that that's a yes. So that's why we use this definition, because it needs to have all of those elements, clear, coherent, freely given, and ongoing for it really to be consent. So at the Center for Sexual Assault and Sexual Violence Survivors, we have a variety of services for them too. We have a sexual assault advocate that can do the same case management and counseling, housing advocacy, economic advocacy, really whatever they are wanting assistance with, they can do that with them. We also recently hired a sexual assault therapist, so she specializes in that, and she's available free of charge for clients that are survivors of sexual violence as well. We also have hospital advocates that respond to the two hospitals over here at Baptist Health Wood and Clark Memorial, and so they can be there with the client while they are getting their sexual assault forensic exam done. If they would like them there during it, they can be there after to support them, and they also can offer them follow-up care by calling them a few days later. And if that person does want to start having services with us, then they can put in a referral at that point too. So that's just a quick overview of the sexual violence program. Okay, so a quick overview of all of the center services. We do have a 24-hour rape crisis and domestic violence line. On there, we can do counseling. We can't do case management on there, but they can put in the referrals for somebody so that they can start seeing an advocate and start case management. They also can give out resources and information too. So if somebody is looking for the nearest shelter that they can go to, they can call the crisis line, and the crisis line can give them that information as well. They also can help with safety planning. So if somebody is having an emergency and they need to leave, of course we instruct them to call 911 first, but after that they are welcome to call us and safety plan with us, and we will figure out, help them figure out a safe place to stay, help them figure out an action plan basically. We also have a shelter at our Louisville location as well. The access point to that will be calling the crisis line too. So if somebody is in danger and they need a safe place to stay, that is an option for them if they screen into that. Unfortunately, it is usually pretty close to full. So if it is full, then we can assist them finding another place to go. There are a few different shelters in the area, as well as Salem. They have Hoosier Hills PAC up there. So we can help transport them to any of these shelters if they have space too. We can even take them up to Salem. So we can help find them somewhere else to go as well. We also have longer term housing advocacy, something that our advocates will do if that client is looking for more of a stable place to go, is we can assist them with their housing applications to the housing authorities, or assist them with finding a landlord that will be able to rent with them, that kind of thing. So we can help them with that long-term care as well. In Indiana, our program is really unique. We have a mobile advocacy program. So this allows our advocates to meet with clients out anywhere in the Southern Indiana community. So that's the whole point of mobile, is that they can go out there and meet those clients' needs wherever they are. The only thing is we can't meet them at their homes for safety reasons, but other than that, we can meet them anywhere in the community. I've met clients at coffee shops before, I've met them at their workplace on their lunch break. This really makes services convenient for survivors because sometimes moves will attract or something car, and so they can only go to work and back. There was one survivor that I was connected with that her husband knew she had to go to class at IUS and she had to come back afterwards. So the IUS police department called me and told me that she wants to talk to an advocate, but they need to go meet her at IUS. And they have a dedicated room for us there. So we had an advocate go over there, meet her there. So it helps bring those services to them, especially when there would be barriers otherwise. So that's our program model in Indiana. Again, a way to, if you all know anybody that would be interested in this program, you all can call the crisis line and they will put in a referral that way too. We have, again, therapy. We also have therapists over at Louisville too that will see Indiana clients, but we also have our own now in Indiana. We do case management. We also have support groups too. So if you know anybody that would be interested, they don't have to be a current client to go, but we have a variety of different groups. We have a financial empowerment one right now, and we have one that focuses on self-esteem. We have a variety of different ones, so that's always something good for people to join. And we have art therapy over in Louisville too. We have legal advocacy at both Louisville and in Indiana. Our legal advocate over here will go to Clark County Court and Floyd County Court for the emergency protective order hearings. They plan to go just every week. They're already there. So we reach out to people that are there for protective orders and give them more information, and we can answer any questions they might have. The legal advocate isn't an attorney, but they know about the process, so they're able to, kind of calm people's fears about it and let them know what to expect. We have hospital advocacy, which I discussed a little bit earlier. We do have an on-site SAFE clinic for the sexual assault forensic exam. We do have that over at Louisville, and that's free. It also is free for people to get it done at the hospitals over here, but this is another option because it's not a hospital environment, and Indiana residents can go over there and get that done. We also have special advocacy for the immigrant community as well. And we have a variety of community partnerships, both over here and in Louisville. We really want to build up our community partnerships because we love being able to connect with you all and, go out in the community and spread this kind of advocacy. We also have an awareness and prevention program. So that's what I specialize in. So that's overviews like this one, as well as professional trainings. So we have longer ones that are available. So if, any other group you all are in, or maybe if you all would like more of an in-depth training, we do offer those as well, with a lot of skills practice for how to really interact with survivors or interact with kiddos and families. And we also have a prevention program. So I go into Hazelwood Middle School every month and I write specific curriculum for them. And it's age appropriate, of course, but it ties into all the things that tie into domestic violence and sexual assault. So we'll go over things like boundaries, consent. I went over like being safe on the internet recently. Different things like that, respect, breaking up in a respectful way. So different things that are relevant to their age group, but that hopefully will stop these behaviors before it gets to the point where people need to come to the center. And finally, we have a 9-county service area, both in Kentucky and in Southern Indiana. An important thing to know about our Indiana program is that we will serve people that are Indiana residents from other counties as long as they're willing to drive into either Floyd or Clark County. So if you know anybody that is interested, but maybe they live in a bordering county, as long as they're willing to drive into either of those counties, again, we're mobile, so we can meet them wherever within those county limits. Just let them know if they can drive and meet us at a McDonald's right over the border. We will do that for sure. Or if they want to come and meet at our office, they can too. No, that was a quick little overview. Do you all have any questions about our services or about anything that we talked about today?
I do. So can you go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
With the therapy case and support groups and art therapy, you may have mentioned this, I might have missed it. Are those located in Floyd and Clark County, or are they in?
Yes, yeah, so they're all, the art therapy, I don't think, Well, we were doing an art group with one of our interns, but she just, her internship just ended, so I don't know if we're doing like an art group anymore, but we do have everything else over in Louisville, so we have, or over in Indiana, sorry. So we do have a therapist, case management, and we do have support groups too. So, and if you all have anyone that might be interested, I can send you all the group calendar. You can give it to them. The groups are all free, and they are, you know, just, they're a good way to connect with other people, and a good way to, you know, learn about this kind of stuff without just being in an academic session. It's much more fun, basically. A big question. Any other questions about our services? Yeah.
Might need to ask you, it's about one of the girls I have. The therapy that you offer might be better for her than what she's getting. She's 14 and she was sexually assaulted when she was 13. And then she was babysitting. But since that time, there have been some other complaints about, and she tends to get herself in situations, and it's not, a lot of times it's consensual, but, and they're not over 18, but I just feel like she needs some kind of therapy to help her set boundaries for herself, and I just don't, she sneaks that out.
Yeah. Gotcha. So we serve adults. So I don't know if I'll have to check because the therapist is like a separate contract, but I don't think she can do the therapy for people under 18. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure not. Typically when we have people as young as like 14, we refer them somewhere else. But yeah, that's definitely a good question. I definitely think therapy would be helpful, but yeah, we don't.
And then she gets therapy, but I don't know if anybody's really interested.
So your services are 18 years old?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think we have served some like 17-year-olds, but yeah, we're like, yeah, we don't really serve younger than that. We will have, like, we will work with the families, but we're not doing like a lot of counseling really with the kiddos, or a lot of like, we are doing therapy with the kiddos. So the stuff with the kiddos that I would do is more like child enrichment and different fun activities for them, but we're not doing play therapy or anything like that. So we do have community partnerships over here in Indiana and the community that we refer them out to so that they can get therapy for people that are trained in that.
I think if you have resources for that, like who your preferred community partner is in relation to domestic violence for children, I think that would be super helpful. And then I would like to know, like, if you get a call on your hotline from a child to somebody under the age of 18, what is kind of the protocol like where you kind of follow that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the crisis line, if they do identify how old they are, sometimes people don't always identify everything on there. People can call anonymously to our crisis line. But if they identify that they are a child, then the crisis line worker will look up other like mental health resources if that's what they're needing. There are also youth shelters, so if they need somewhere to go, they will look that up for them. We have a whole database of different resources that our crisis line workers look at. So they will look up the thing most close to that kiddo. So if they're over here in Indiana, they'll look up the Indiana resources and then connect them that way.
You know the platforms that they use to look at those resources?
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but our crisis line also serves as 211. So we answer calls for both our crisis line and for 211. So I think the system might be 211. I'm not for sure, but yeah, it has a way of looking at resources. No, I don't think so.
I don't know how.
So